Before we continue, understand this podcast is for adults only and refers to relationships and activities between adults which are voluntary and consensual. If you or anyone you know is being abused, coerced, or violently aggressed against, please reach out for help to the appropriate authorities. Hello, and welcome. Gorean Voice, Episode 8, A Deeper Dive into Collars. Let's do it. It's time for some shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about my collars, Trevan Forge collars. First of all, I should tell you that Treve, or Treve, I don't know how it's pronounced, is my favorite Gorean city in the books. There's something fascinating about a city whose location is not known to non-inhabitants. I suppose its location isn't known precisely by many of its slave girl inhabitants also. From time to time, I've enjoyed taking a girl of mine to a place that she doesn't know, making use of blindfolds, restraints, etc. to ensure she is unable to ascertain her location. That I took away her phone is a given, and it lets us step back in time a little to when we weren't so connected to the world, but merely connected to each other. One time I even did a longish drive to take care of a small business matter, followed by another longish drive to a bed and breakfast that was just a few blocks from our home. My blindfolded slave girl thoroughly enjoyed this little staycation, even if she didn't find out until morning just how close we were to where we usually sleep. So Treve to me evokes this stealthy, immersive notion of an occasion. But the men of Treve are also described as particularly competent warriors who regularly engage in war, freebooting, and trade with the surrounding cities, settlements, and caravans. One character, Rask of Treve, states in no uncertain terms that he doesn't buy women, he takes them. I'll leave it to you to read the books and determine if he ever breaks this policy, and I'll leave it to those who have read the books many times and have a least favorite volume to say if the woman in question deserves it. Back to the collars, though. Everything about Treve makes me think the citizens are of a no-nonsense disposition, and its slave girls are rather more thoroughly enslaved there than in other places on Gore. Even if one were to escape, the harsh mountain terrain would be the end of her in no time. So I chose to name my little collar-making endeavor the Trevan Forge. The collars I'm making have two features that put them in their own category. One such feature is that the fit and finish is superb. I'd say it's on par with Axmar, who I hold in the highest esteem for the precision of their machining. The other unique feature, and the real gin in the Trevan Forge martini, though, is the electronics. There are a couple of other manufacturers who are playing around with slave shock collars, but none of them have the combination of security and a seamless aesthetic integration into the collar itself. Yes, you can buckle a regular shock collar around a girl's neck, but having opposable thumbs, she can free herself from it if she so chooses. Not so with my Trevan Forge collars. My collars are 100% waterproof. Yes, you may dive in the ocean wearing them without fear of water infiltration. They are as secure as any Axmar collar, and have a waterproof magnetic charging interface, and none of the electronic features may be accessed or tampered with from the collar itself. So your crafty Kajira won't be surreptitiously turning it off or turning down the intensity of the corrections. Is this SSC, that is, safe, sane, and consensual? Is it RAC, that is, risk-aware consensual kink? I don't know. I suspect people who are more concerned with those acronyms may say a resounding no. As in the case of my episode about collars in general, I implore you to consider your needs for safety, etc., before getting in touch with me to cook one up for your slave girl. However, I would say the collars are quite Gorean, Trevan even, and are quite suitable for someone who practices a Gorean lifestyle here on Earth, or who is engaged in any sort of other TPE, that's total power exchange, or a CNC, that's consensual non-consent type relationship. In terms of the look, I make both Turian style and band style. My Turian collars can have the ergonomic twist that Axmar pioneered, or they can be in the shape of a straight torus. My band collars can be straight, that is, cylindrical, or they may be slightly conical for ergonomic purposes as well. I've also made a few other one-offs, including a groovy sine wave looking collar band, and I've played around with some chain designs as well, but generally the theme is solid and secure metal. I can make a Turian style have a more rustic look, like Daenerys Targaryen's collar from the popular high fantasy TV series Game of Thrones, or I can keep it looking shiny, or even discolor it with quenching. For the band collars, again, I can get a little rustic and severe, or I can keep things as smooth and shiny as Son Mi 451's collar from the film Cloud Atlas. In each case, the electronics are housed around back in a seamlessly integrated bulge in the collar's circumference. The charging connection is magnetic and waterproof. In most cases, the corrections are also delivered at the back of the neck. If you, like me, like to shock a girl right up front at the throat, I can also bring the contacts around the front. In these collars, I integrate a little medallion in the front to house the contacts. It's much smaller than the main housing around the back. So far, I've made the front housing as a small circle, as a heart shape, as a lozenge shape evocative of the collars from the Japanese film Battle Royale, and once, by request, in the shape of Kitty-chan. By the way, my contacts are not those pokey screw things you see on doggy shock collars. They are super low profile and super comfortable. Wearers report that they don't even feel them. I use a combination of modern manufacturing techniques to achieve the necessary syntheses of form factor, function, customizability, and beauty that I want Trevan Forge collars to have. As such, custom engravings, embossings, or even profiles of the collar itself are all within my capacity, and I'm always excited by a new challenge. Is there a collar you've seen with your mind's eye, or in some film, TV show, comic book, or just one you saw once on a beautiful slave, and you've always wanted one to put around a special neck? Let's chat. I'm happy to make that a reality. With respect to the electronics, at the moment, my version 1.0 collar is capable of administering behavior-enhancing corrective shocks, and my 2.0 can also beep and vibrate, allowing a master to signal and direct his slave girl via the included remote. I'm working on a version which will include some additional features, including geofencing and speech restriction, accelerometer measured posture restrictions, and even a photo-sensing element if you like to enforce sartorial restrictions on your slave girl. These features will debut, they're in testing right now, and I'll probably debut them sometime around 2026. If your Kajira already wears a secure metal collar that you're fond of, I can cook up an adapter that either slips into her collar to grant it the behavior-enhancing features of Trevan Forge collars, or replaces a segment of her collar. The slip-on adapters are customized to each collar type, but they occlude into the interior circumference by no more than 3 millimeters. This is also a slightly more affordable way to get your Kajira into a Trevan Forge collar. I have quite a collection of steel and titanium collars from many of the manufacturers I mentioned in episode 3 to use for reference measurements. However, I can also supply detailed instructions on how to measure her collar precisely enough for my purposes without even removing it from her neck. You may also send me the collar and I can add the electronic housing to it, but I hope you have a spare. It will take me a few weeks door to door, and I would hate for your slave girl to suffer the indignity of a naked neck for that long. I'm also happy to cook up some solid, comfortable slave bracelets and slave anklets. Again, these don't come in small, medium, and large. Every set is custom measured to fit your Kajira's precise anatomy. She'll be able to comfortably walk, run, swim, shower, bathe, etc. in her bracelets and anklets, to the point that she forgets they're even there. I have a precise measuring technique that ensures a comfortable ergonomic fit that permits day-to-day activities. Though I've never had this request, there's no reason I couldn't integrate the electronics into the wrist cuffs or ankle cuffs as well. Now, in keeping with the Trevan theme, but more to prevent my designs from getting ripped off and appearing on Alibaba.com in 6 months, you won't find any diagrams, etc. of my collar's functions on my website, but every order will include a generous, on-paper, illustrated explanation of how to charge, maintain, lock and unlock the collars, etc. Part of this is to maintain the integrity of the designs. Part of it is also so that only owners, and not slave girls, ever have access to this documentation. In the case that a slave girl wishes to purchase her own collar, she can have the keys and documentation sent to a separate address, such that she will remain delightfully in the dark with respect to the exact nature of the electronics or the locking mechanism. With respect to how they lock, I use a variety of locking mechanisms, some of which require a key, others require a custom manufactured tool. I won't go into the details here about the locking mechanism, but to say that in many cases, having the key is not enough. One must know how to use the key in order to unlock the collar. Some of the keys I supply are more than they appear to be. Sometimes the part of the key that is to touch the collar is not exactly intuitive, which is how I like it. So when you buy a collar from me, even though it's likely to be very nearly unique, I keep all the files on my end to make certain that I can cook up spare keys, bands, electronics components, etc. if you ever need to change anything. Let's just make a deal that you don't share this information widely. All of my data is stored offline. Your files are safe with me. A slave girl of mine has had my steel or titanium locked about her for nearly 16 years. In the case of the last several iterations, she wouldn't be able to unlock herself even if she held the key in her hand. Now, I'm not a monster. Several of my male relatives have spare keys of this sort, and have been instructed in how to use them in the event of my death or incapacitation. And even though she has expressed a desire to, I do not wish to impose upon a slave girl of mine that she wear her collar to the grave. I think I've made my point, though. There is a richness in her not knowing certain things. If you want to put a Trevan Forge collar around your girl's neck, you're probably the type of man who understands that richness. Now, with respect to keeping things somewhat on the down low, I don't expect you to sign an NDA or anything, and of course, I'd love for you to parade your Kajira around, announcing to anyone who will listen that you got her collar from the Trevan Forge, but I would appreciate it if you don't put any photographs online of the collars not locked about a lovely throat. I'd appreciate it if you never demonstrate the locking mechanism to the public, and please, no unboxing videos. Last but not least, if I even get a whiff of an idea, of a notion, of a feeling, of a suspicion that you want to buy one of my collars to put it on a minor, I'll find you and cut your heart out with a rusty spoon. Like I say at the start of each and every episode, this is for adults, consenting adults. You want to play close to the edge? that's fine, but don't you cross that line. Also, in keeping with the Trevan theme, and because it aligns oh so nicely with my own dedication to crypto anarchy and cypherpunk goodness, any quotation I make for your next beautiful custom collar, behavior enhancing adapter, or cuff set can be discounted substantially if you choose to pay in a cryptocurrency. Let's make a deal. I can't wait to make something for you. Thanks for listening and letting me go on and on about collars. I better get back into my workshop making some more sparks. In a future episode, I'll be going into the specifics of service and how there's nothing more beautiful to me than a girl wearing my steel, smiling, walking towards me, and bringing me a cup of tea. Next week, however, I'll be looking at what I call Norman normativity. No, this doesn't mean comparing everything to the northern half of Western Europe. It means living Gorean as if a Gorean lifestyle is itself normative. It takes some effort, but I think the dividends it pays are greater than the investment. Until then, lads, stay strong, stay upright. Don't give in, but do caress. Ladies, reach up and touch your collar or your neck a few times today. Let yourself feel love for the man who has locked up your throat, or if your neck be yet bare, embrace, but don't indulge more than a few moments, the longing your neck feels for his steel. Take care, be well.